The Minnesota Department of Agriculture is the lead agency for agricultural chemical spills. Our response team works with the spiller, so ag chem incidents are cleaned up quickly. A quick response ensures that our soil and water resources are protected. Agricultural chemicals are fertilizers and pesticides, which include herbicides, insecticides, fungicides, and rodenticides. The MDA has responsibility for enforcing proper handling and use of these chemicals. It makes good business sense to practice emergency response so when an incident does occur, your response will be swift. That is why it is important to think about your response procedures in advance and write them down in an incident response plan. The definition of an incident is any event that releases an agricultural chemical into the environment. An incident includes a threatened release. It doesn't have to be out of the container to be an incident. For example, an overturned truck with containers on their sides is an incident because the threat of a release is there, even though no spill occurred. There is an exception to the definition of an incident. An incident does not include a release resulting from the normal use of a fertilizer or pesticide or related practice in accordance with state and/or federal law. An incident response plan is a written plan that describes the actions that will be taken to prevent and respond to agricultural chemical emergency incidents. In other words, how do you respond when a 50-gallon sprayer being pulled by a four-wheeler tips over while spraying? What do you do when your shop catches fire and threatens the adjacent building where ag chems are stored? What do you do when a 2.5-gallon jug of a total kill herbicide falls off the pickup and ruptures on the highway? Think about the incidents you will most likely see and generically address them in your plan. Some businesses or persons are legally required to develop and maintain an incident response plan. Commercial, non-commercial, and structural pesticide applicators are required to have an incident response plan. So are pesticide dealers. A plan is required for those that store pesticides in containers greater than or equal to 56 gallons or greater than or equal to 100 pounds. Lastly, those that store bulk fertilizers or anhydrous ammonia will need an incident response plan. Not surprisingly, the majority of incidents occur when in storage, during transportation to the application site, and when applied. Over the years, the number one cause of reported incidents are traffic-related. Your plan should include your response to incidents that could occur during storage, when transported, or during application. So what should you include in the plan? Product labels and safety data sheets. These contain the manufacturer's recommended and required handling and use instructions. They also include proper personal protective equipment needed, use procedures, spill cleanup recommendations, etc. The plan should have a page with the date you last reviewed it. No updates? Write down the date in the plan when you checked it anyway. A plan is not useful if no one knows where it is or what it contains. Have all employees review your facility plan. Emergency contacts. Include any phone numbers that you contact that you feel may be important. First aid procedures. For example, do you need an eye wash station or bottles? How do you administer first aid to a coworker who has been exposed to ag chems? Include diagrams of your facility where ag chems are stored and maps of routes to your facility. Having product labels and SDS on hand is critical to a response. First responders will need to know what they are dealing with to gauge tactics. Know what your current inventory is and have labels and SDS available in paper or electronic form for quick reference. Those documents contain valuable information about application rates and instructions, physical or chemical hazards the product may pose, what the product is composed of, first aid measures in case of exposure, special firefighting instructions, containment, cleanup, and disposal measures for an accidental release, precautions for safety handling and storage, personal protection equipment needs, physical and chemical characteristics of the product, chemical stability and probability of hazardous reactions, environmental implications of a spill, and safe transportation measures. It is important to be able to get help quickly. Keep updated lists of appropriate phone numbers. Some examples are 911 for local response, cellular numbers of managers and staff at your facility, the Minnesota Duty Officer number, 1-800-422-0798 to contact the MDA, If soil needs to be excavated, call Gopher State at 811 prior to digging. Other phone numbers include neighbors, family, insurance carriers, township, county, and/or city officials, excavators, non-emergency local law enforcement, chemical dealer representatives, vac truck operators, and solid waste haulers and landfills. Maps are one of the most important tools to have in your incident plan. An aerial photo like this can easily be copied from Google Earth or MSN for your facility and surrounding area. On such maps, you can label nearby hospitals, schools, residential areas, and other places where there are vulnerable populations. Sketch in runoff patterns from your property, and note any particularly sensitive waterways nearby. Have a street access map, so when you need a fire response, you can advise the fire department on how to approach their facility safely. In addition, a diagram of your facility will assist first responders in locating overcome employees, identifying hazardous materials, or finding their way around in the dark. The next few slides are examples of incidents that have occurred in Minnesota. A release from liquid fertilizer bulk tank. A producer was transporting a bulk tank filled with a liquid starter fertilizer when the trailer broke. The straps holding the tank in place broke, causing the trailer to tip over and the bulk tank split open. The farmer notified the MDA by calling the Minnesota duty officer. After the ditch was checked and cleared of all utility lines, the ditch was excavated and the soil was land spread. Clean soil was used to backfill, and grass was seeded to restore the area. Lawn care spill. A lawn care service vehicle swerved to avoid another vehicle and crashed into a tree. The bulk tank it was carrying shifted and a valve broke. A tank mix of fertilizer and broadleaf leaked through the broken valve and puddled in the street. The driver used absorbents to create a berm downslope of the spill. He then called his supervisor, who responded with equipment as well as a 2.5-gallon carboy of water to be used to wash the road. None of the ag chems reached the storm drain, which would eventually empty into the Mississippi River. A flood. Once-in-a-lifetime rain event caused river flooding, which reached an agricultural chemical warehouse. Once the flood waters receded, an inventory was done and compared to a file copy. Several mini bulk containers were compromised, and the cleanup was focused on those chemicals. The ag chem firm hired an environmental consultant to oversee the cleanup efforts. Costs associated with the cleanup efforts were reimbursed back to the firm by the MDA. A dry fertilizer spill. Roughly one-third of reported incidents in Minnesota are transportation-related. Here, a dry fertilizer tender truck took a corner too sharply and tipped over. Although it looks catastrophic, this cleanup was done quickly and the street was reopened within hours of the release. All ag chem spills must be reported upon discovering the incident. Spillers are required to take action to abate the incident. When reporting the incident to the duty officer, you will be linked to staff at the MDA who can advise you on proper cleanup. MDA staff are on call after work hours, holidays, and weekends and have the knowledge and expertise to help you clean up the spill quickly and economically. One phone call to the Minnesota duty officer allows you to report not only ag chem spills, but any other hazardous material spills, including oil and fuel. The duty officer will route non-ag chem spills to the appropriate agency. One phone number covers all aspects of your incident. Keep it on hand in your facility, trucks, and equipment. Once an incident occurs, it is to be reported. This is how to report spills. Local authorities. If there is a threat to life or property, call your local responders, which usually is done by dialing 911. The safety of those involved is the top priority in any incident. Then notify your facility manager to implement your incident response plan. State authorities. The MDA uses the services of the Minnesota duty officer to accept notifications. Report ag chemical spills to the MDA by phoning the Minnesota duty officer at 1-800-422-0798. If the local responders report the spill to the duty officers, that does not relieve you of the responsibility to report the spill. And federal authorities. Finally, if the quantity lost is above the federal reporting quantity, then you must phone the National Response Center. The reportable quantity can be found on the safety data sheets. There are new requirements for your incident response plans. Your incident response plan must be updated every 3 years or when any information inside changes. Employees must be trained, and that training must occur at least once a year. Incident response plans must be offered or made available to your local responders. Remember that all updates, trainings, and sharing of your plan must be documented with the date they occurred. And finally, a sample plan is available from the MDA as a guide to what is required to be included in your incident response plan. This template can be downloaded from our website. Your plan is only as good as those trained to use it. Define roles and assign employees to fill them. The Incident Response Plan template can be downloaded by visiting this website. More information on reporting and response can also be found here.